Ever get lost in your imagination? We all do, right? Yeah. But what if, like, those mental images were so vivid, so clear, they were practically real life? Mm-hmm. That's hyperphantasia, the topic of today's deep dive. Yeah. And some scientists think it might be a key to understanding something even wilder. Quantum processes in our brains.
It really is a fascinating intersection. Cutting edge physics meets, the mysteries of the human mind. We're talking about quantum computing happening right here.
Whoa, you read my mind. Yeah. For those just joining us, hyperphantasia, it's like imagination, but on steroids. Mm. And I don't mean just picturing a beach, but like experiencing it, the sand, the waves crashing, that salty air, everything.
Sensory overload.
Yeah, but all in your head.
Exactly.
So could this mean our brains are working on a quantum level? That's the million-dollar question we're looking at today.
That's the core of our deep dive today, yeah.
Yeah.
We're exploring a really interesting article called Quantum Computing in the Human Brain. People with Hyperphantasia, Extreme Creative Superpowers.
Catchy title.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's by Srinidhi Ranganathan. And you know me, I like to lay the groundwork. So before we jump into the deep end, let's unpack this quantum brain idea.
Okay, let's unpack it. Most of us, we think about the brain like a really complex computer, right?
Sure.
Neurons firing, electrical signals like ones and zeros.
Yeah.
But the quantum brain hypothesis throws a curveball. It suggests that quantum mechanics, those rules that govern like the tiniest particles, might be a part of how our brains process information.
Precisely. And there's been some research that supports this too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. One study looked at quantum gravity. That's the study of space and time, basically.
Right.
And they applied the concepts to how our brains work.
Yeah.
And their findings suggest that our brains are capable of quantum computation.
Hold on, stop right there for a second. That's mind-blowing. So our brains aren't just biological computers. They're like way more powerful than we thought.
It really changes how we view the brain's potential. Imagine your brain not just keeping up with supercomputers, but going beyond that. Especially in creativity, making decisions quickly, learning new things. The possibilities are endless.
And that's where hyperphantasia comes in.
Right.
The article talks about how these really vivid mental experiences could be a result of something called quantum coherence in the brain. But before we go any further, can we break down quantum coherence?
Sure. It's one of those concepts that really makes you think about how strange the quantum world is. It basically means particles can exist in multiple states at the same time. Now, if this applies to our brains, and that's a big if, it could explain how people with hyperphantasia can hold those detailed, complex pictures in their minds.
Wow.
It's like they're running countless simulations at once.
This is incredible. And the article uses the author Srinidhi Ranganathan as an example. He has hyperphantasia and he embodies this creative potential. He's like living proof.
And what's amazing is it's not just about seeing things clearly. It's about using those mental images like tools to solve problems, create, innovate. It's a whole set of creative superpowers that people with hyperphantasia seem to have.
Okay, superpowers. Now you're speaking my language. All right, sign me up for those superpowers. But first, let's get back to Srinidhi. You said he has these superpowers, right?
Yeah, he really does. Take problem solving, for example. He talks about being able to see complex systems in his mind.
Okay.
And it's not just seeing. He can manipulate them like a 3D model.
Wow.
You can rotate it, zoom in on parts, almost like walking through it to find solutions.
That's next level.
It is. It's like having a, what do you call it?
A superpower.
Yeah. It's like having a CAD program, but it's all in his head.
Exactly. It's amazing. But the article also mentioned like amplified emotional intelligence as a superpower. What's that about?
Right. Because hyperphantasia is so immersive. Mm-hmm. It makes sense that the emotion someone feels during these visualizations would be stronger too. So imagine a writer
creating a really sad scene. Someone with hyperphantasia might not just be writing it, they might be living it, feeling all those emotions intensely.
Wow, it's like method acting, but for your imagination. No wonder the things they create are so powerful. Okay, this is all really fascinating, but I have a question. If this whole quantum brain idea is so groundbreaking, why isn't everyone talking about it?
It's a good question, and it's something the article addresses. Studying something as complex as quantum activity in the brain, it's a huge challenge.
So we can't just like hook someone up to an fMRI and see what's happening.
Not exactly. Brain imaging is great,
yeah,
but it's measuring things on a much larger scale. To see quantum stuff, we need a different level of technology.
I get it.
Think of it like trying to study atoms with a telescope. The tools just aren't there yet. Okay, that makes sense. But the possibilities are huge. We've talked about creativity, problem solving. What about AI? Could we build machines that think more like us?
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges in AI is replicating how flexible and inventive the human mind is.
Right.
AI is good at tasks with clear rules, but thinking outside the box, that's where it struggles, especially compared to people with hyperphantasia.
So you're saying that understanding the quantum brain could help us build AI that can really think for itself, maybe even make new scientific discoveries or write a best-selling novel.
It's a really exciting thought. Imagine AI with that same spark of creativity and intuition that drives us. It could change everything, from science and tech to art, music, storytelling.
And what about medicine? Could this research lead to new treatments for, like, cognitive disorders?
Definitely a possibility. Imagine using the power of visualization to help someone with PTSD or to improve cognitive function in people with dementia.
Wow.
The potential is there.
You know, it's funny. We always talk about pushing the limits of science and technology.
Right.
But this makes you think, maybe those limits are all in our heads. Like, what if our brains can already do things we haven't even imagined yet?
It's a humbling thought. We see the brain through what we can measure, what we understand.
Yeah.
But what if we're just scratching the surface? This whole thing with hyperphantasia and the quantum brain.
Yeah.
It's like finding a secret room in a house you thought you knew.
And who knows what we'll find in there. So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from today?
That's a good question. I think it comes back to the idea that we're only starting to understand what the human mind can really do. We've spent centuries trying to figure out consciousness and creativity using physics and biology, and we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
But those explanations might just be a small part of a much bigger picture.
Like we've been trying to solve a quantum equation using like high school math.
Exactly. We needed this new perspective, this quantum brain idea, to even ask the right questions.
And hyperphantasia with these vivid images and creative abilities, it could be the key to unlocking those answers. It's like a window into what our brains could be capable of.
Right.
I love that. This idea that we all have these untapped superpowers. And maybe by studying people like Srinidhi and learning more about the quantum world, we can learn how to access those abilities, push the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Wouldn't that be incredible? To crack the code of consciousness, unlock a new era of human potential.
It's a pretty amazing thought, and one worth exploring with like open minds and curiosity.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners, is there a question you'd like them to think about? What's the final thought we can leave them with?
How about this? If some people can already tap into these superpowers, even if we don't fully get it yet, what does that say about us? What if these aren't just anomalies, but glimpses of what we're all capable of?
That's something to think about.
It might be time to rethink our limits. Embrace the possibility that our brains are way more powerful than we thought.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired. A huge thanks to you for joining us today. This has been mind-blowing, to say the least.
My pleasure. Always happy to dive into these topics with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the mysteries of the mind. Until next time, keep those imaginations firing. Who knows? You might just stumble upon your own quantum leap in creativity.